Welcome to the new music for a challenging season webinar replay. If you have any questions at all, just email me through the Compose Create site. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to come and join us. And we hope that not only will you get new ideas for teaching and new ideas for music for your students, but that you'll also feel very wrapped in a beautiful, loving community, and you will not feel lonely and isolated. We want you to feel surrounded by loving teachers who are in it with you. So I want to start by asking, how are you doing? This is a hard question to answer these days, but I want to just be honest about this. Before you answer this, though, I just thought I'd share this very funny post I saw. It's actually a t-shirt that's advertised on Instagram. It says 2020, 1 star. Very bad. Would not recommend. So that made me chuckle, and I kind of want a t-shirt like that because that's kind of how 2020 is happening for me. And I would guess how it's happening for most of you. But I want to start by talking about how we're doing. And if you feel comfortable and want to just put a brief comment in the chat about how you're doing right now, that would be great, because I know that teachers would love to hear that they're not the only ones feeling challenged or isolated or even feeling excited. Maybe you're excited and just energized about teaching. Maybe you're completely on the other side. You're feeling anxious and depressed, and maybe you're somewhere in between, but we're all somewhere, and it just feels good to know that other people are there as well. So feel free, if you'd like, to share in the chat. I just want to say that it's really important, I think, that we're just honest with you from the beginning of this webinar, how things really are. I don't think there's any help in pretending that online lessons have been or will be easy. There's no help in pretending that your current scheduling situation is easy. That's never easy. And this makes it even worse. There's no help in pretending that we have it all together, because we don't, and probably most of us are a mess sometimes, and a little disorganized more than we would normally be. And so we want to be honest in this webinar, and we want you to feel like you're surrounded by people who appreciate that honesty, and we want to just have you hopefully feel that you're not alone. I don't want this to be a depressing webinar. We're certainly not going to be depressing, but I just want you to know that you're seen and you're heard. And we want to always start with acknowledging the truth about where we've been, because we've been through some hard stuff. So I want to start real quick by asking Diane to share, and then I'll share about, Diane, where you've been, maybe where you are now in terms of how you're doing, and then maybe a little bit about how that prompted you or got you to write some of the music that you did.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it. It's nice to talk about what I've been through. So my situation was a little bit different probably than everybody else's. And I think that's how everybody feels. Everybody feels like, my situation's so weird. How could anybody relate to this? Yeah. But I'll tell you what happened to me. I live in San Francisco, and I have, I'm old and I'm kind of established, and I have a studio filled with exactly who I want. So I have a studio that's about half kids, just normal kids, a few very talented kids every once in a while. And then I teach a lot of adults, and I teach a lot of teachers. And so I have this lovely business, and I have a beautiful studio. And I came up to my friend's, it's probably best to call it a cabin, about an hour and a half north of San Francisco in March. And we sort of came up for the weekend thinking we'll just kind of be here for the, for this lockdown period, maybe a week or something at the longest. And I've never left for a variety of reasons. I was not able to go back to my house. It's very complicated, but in any case, hopefully, I'm hoping maybe next week sometime I'll be able to go home. But I found myself in a little cabin by the sea. Right now I'm looking out at the beautiful ocean as the sun is rising and the fog is clearing. It's gorgeous. That part is fabulous. But I have a clavinova instead of my two fabulous pianos. I don't have any music here. I don't have a dishwasher. I don't have a clothes washing machine. I've learned to hand wash a lot of stuff. Oh, wow. We don't have mail delivery. So it's been, it's been tough. There's been moments like when my partner left one morning to go, he was going into work and he walked out, he's leaving and he says, "Oh, and by the way, the toilet's broken." So I said, "Wait, what kind of broken?" And he said, "Well, if you put your hand here and then you take the flap and then," so it turned out it was usable, but with great duress. So I've gone from, pretty cushy life to some pretty tough times. But in the meantime, I had to learn how to teach online and I didn't want to. And I was very grumpy about it. And I was in denial for a while that was even going to happen. I shouldn't have to do that because I liked my life and I deserved to have that life. And, it just didn't seem to matter how I felt that I deserved something else. I didn't get it. And so what happened was I realized I suddenly had all these kids that I needed to teach and I didn't have materials for them. Mm-hmm. And so I remember there was a morning I woke up and I thought, I know what I need to write. I need to write a bunch of little pieces and I know what they need to sound like. And I just sort of ran into the other room and started writing. And they just kind of came out of me and they didn't require a huge amount of editing. They were just kind of straightforward. And I started using them. And that's how All Cooped Up came to be. I decided to call them All Cooped Up because I thought it was a good way to give my students a way to find some humor in this crazy situation and gave them imaginative titles that got them engaged. And started selling them just really kind of almost like public service. Like, does anybody else need this kind of simple things that you can teach online? Mm-hmm. And that's how it started. And it felt so good to do something that was functional for me, that was helping other people, and also basically really solved this massive problem I had because I found myself suddenly, and I don't think this is probably different from most teachers. I was used to having an assignment book and the kid walked in with the assignment book and I looked at what I'd written last week. Even if they hadn't looked at what I'd written, I could look at what I'd written. Right. And I also, this is going to sound really, this is true, but I don't think most people will ever admit it. I wanted stuff that was new so I could be sure I hadn't assigned it before. Because sometimes I get lost and I can't remember what I gave to Susie and what I gave to John. And, I'm very together, but not that together. Mm-hmm. So I knew if it was new stuff, I could dole it out over the next few weeks and have some fun with it. Right. And it worked. So that's how my life has been. I think the topsy-turviness of it may be a little bit more location driven than most people, but everybody I've talked to has experienced that kind of upset in their business and in their psyche. And especially the teachers who then suddenly were trying to work with their kids at home all day. So they're already tired by the time they're supposed to be trying to teach other kids. So my heart really has gone out to the parents in this situation who are trying to parent kids and be good sports and not lose their mind too. People like you, Wendy, who have kids at home. I'm grateful my kids are a little bit older, I have to say. I'm eternally grateful that they're well and healthy and on their own right now. But I just think it's a tough time for everybody. And the more of those variables that you have in your everyday life, so if you have parents who are ill or kids who are home, or some people I know who have all of those, or a special needs kid at home. I have friends who now have no school for their special needs kids. That kind of stuff is ridiculous. Just the number of things people are dealing with. My heart just aches for my friends that are in those situations. So I feel lucky. I'm looking at the beach.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think every one of us has sort of had to force ourselves to say in some way, oh, I feel blessed or feel lucky because of this. We're just, there's something in each of our lives that's beautiful, but also it's a mess. And I've talked to you many times over the last couple of months, and just hearing how your life is a mess and telling you how my life is a mess has been just really good to hear. And I think I guess I just want teachers to know that nobody's got it together right now. I will say that right now where I'm at is I'm more stable, I think, right now than I've been in a while. And I think that comes from just over the summer, finally having the ability to relax after school had ended and having so much less pressure I feel a little more stable, but at the same time, things feel very, very unsettled for me and for my family, and the whole school choices that we've had and then not had, and then that the options have changed on us, and all of that is just over the top in terms of stress. And having to choose different situations in school, none of which are the best choice. Do I send my kids, and is it safe? Do I keep my kids home and have to deal with working and schooling at the same time? Do I legit all out homeschool them? I mean, all of this is just, so,
Well, and it's not much better. I mean, it's better in some ways, but I mean, like my daughter's heading back to college for her senior year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she had to decide, well, first of all, she's at college on the East Coast. Is she going to drive across the country? Is she,
Right.
What's her living situation going to be like? It's her senior year. Should she go? So I think even parents who have kids in college, there still aren't any easy solutions for those people either.
No, for sure.
But I think if they're home with you, it's the worst.
Well, yeah, it's a much more present of a situation, you might
Exactly.
say.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think in general things are just a little bit better, just compared to how they were. So initially in the first 6 weeks, having to do this weird form of hybrid homeschooling was just crazy. And by 10 a.m. every single day, I was done. Like, not just done with schooling. I was done with everything. I couldn't do
That's
anything.
a little early.
It's a little
That's
early.
A little early to be done.
I peaked at 10 a.m. and then was like, I'm going to bed again. But no, I mean, it was just, I couldn't do anything creative. You get these ideas that artists, when they're going through hard times, can really, pull out something creative in them. But there was no ability to do that, because there was no margin, there was no space, there was no, there was nothing. And so it was really hard.
Somebody just wrote can I just say this? Somebody just wrote a comment that said, having been a widow for 10 years, I suddenly realized what a huge emotional, psychological support system my students and families have been for me. I miss seeing them in person so much. I really feel your pain on that one. And I think so many of us have these communities within our studios of people that love and support us, and not being able to see them has been tough.
Right.
Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I think it's
for
tough.
sure. Yes. Well,
Sorry.
everybody's situation is so unique, and everybody's gone through such sad, like super sad times. Finally, for me, after about 6 weeks, I finally decided, I want to send out a quick newsletter and a survey to see how my parents are doing, how piano teachers are doing. And so I almost didn't send it out, because I didn't know if I had the margin and the strength to even read through all the comments, but I really wanted to know. And so I sent it out, and that became the lifesaver for me, because everyone kept saying, I asked everyone, what do you need? And they were saying, I need online teaching to be easier. I need music that I can immediately teach. I need music that kids are excited about right away, and I don't have to play and sell to them. I need music that's short and sweet and to the point and still gets the job done. And that created short sheets. The short sheets were born at that point, and they're short enough that I had the margin, both the margin in my house and the space, as well as just the mental margin to do them. And I told my husband while I was doing them, I have never had so much fun creating music than I am right now. And granted, that fun was up here, and then maybe the next 2 hours I'd be way down here, and it was all over the place. But at least while I was composing, I was enjoying it. So anyway, I'm so grateful to teachers who took the time to take that survey, to make that survey, and to tell me how that they were feeling. It really helped a lot, and certainly helped me to get something for me. It was therapeutic for me, but also something out to teachers that was hopefully helpful to them as well. So I want to start by talking about short sheets. Now I'm going to real quick stop showing my slide presentation, and then I'm going to start it again, because it was looking a little womper-jawed on my end. So I want to tell you a little bit about what short sheets are, and then just introduce them to you. and show you the new ones that we have. Short sheets are basically a set of pieces where there are 3 pieces in a set. So for example, Fun Foods is a set, and there are 3 one-page pieces in this particular set. Now, these pieces are still pedagogically solid. They've got the fingerings, articulations, and a careful eye for detail and the way it lays out on the page, just like you would see for a method book piece. They're fantastic though for online lessons because you can send it to your students via email right now, and they can print it and they can immediately be able to work on it because it's only one piece. But as I was working on them, I got to thinking, these aren't just good for online lessons. These are going to be really good for in-person lessons because we've got lots of students with short attention spans. I don't know about you, but I've had students in the past that they don't even like 2-page pieces. That scares them. 3-page pieces are a no-go completely. So students with short attention spans or that get overwhelmed with 2-page pieces, busy students, and that's everyone. Maybe we're less busy than we used to be, but it's going to be ramping up again. So you've got your junior high students and your late elementary students and your high school students. For sure, they need shorter pieces that are still pedagogically solid that can help them advance, but maybe won't take nearly as long to learn. And then students who need a sense of accomplishment. So a lot of us have had students that are siblings before, and they start at the same time, and one student just is doing better than the other. These are really good to supplement for that student that's maybe not doing as well and not moving as quickly because the pieces are shorter. Maybe they can get through them a little bit easier. And then students, especially participating in the 30 and 40 piece challenge. I can tell you more about this challenge later, but if you use this, what I mean. You get your junior hires and your senior hires, and they're so busy and they don't have time to learn 7 or 10 or especially 30 5-page pieces. And so giving them a piece that's only 1.5 pages long, but still helps them advance, that's exactly what we need for this kind of challenge. Carrie already has written in and said that these short sheets are wonderful. They're just enough of a challenge and also beautiful. And then Tess says, and I love this comment, your short sheets have been so mentally healthy for the students. The ability to accomplish something small and the satisfaction of finishing it. And I love this because it really acknowledges that not only do we need to think about our mental health during this time, but our kids need us to give attention to their mental health as well. So this feeling of continuing to accomplish things, I think, is really important for kids. All right, so I'm going to go through these in order of level. So summer fun, at the fair, and playful jobs are the black key sets of short sheets. And you might wonder, well, why did you write so many black key sets of short sheets? Because that's 9 pieces, 3 pieces each. Well, that's true, but you all are knowing in the back of your head why I did that. Because young kids on black keys go through music so quickly, and we always need more music to send them home with. So these 3 sets have 3 different pieces in them, and each of them are black pieces, but there's occasionally a white key that just falls nicely in the hands. It just makes sense. So for example, if your left hand is on the 3 black keys with 2, 3, and 4, your thumb's just going to naturally fall on that B. And so that B becomes an option in a particular piece, a few of the pieces that they can easily play. And it's pictured on the keyboard so they know exactly what to play. Of course, like I said, the hand position is pictured, and it's music kids love. You can tell by the titles, which I'll tell you in a minute. This is specifically designed to appeal to children, just talking about all the kinds of things that they're interested in, not necessarily the things we're interested in. Some of the pieces have extra musical sounds, and that's what I call sounds like knocking on the piano or doing something crazy with your hands. So those are always fun for students. And then they're also good for beginners, of course, but also students who need fingering reinforcement. One of my children likes to go, even though she's not playing black key pieces anymore, she likes to go play the black key pieces, and those actually reinforce what her finger numbers are. So there's so many uses for all of these, giving them to students who are above the level to review concepts. All of those are good ideas. So I'm going to play just some of the pieces from these particular sets, and I'm going to move to my piano so that I can do that. The first set is Playful Jobs, and this set includes a piece called Western Wear. Would you wear a Western hat? Western is where it's at. Boots, belts, buckles, stuff like that. Western wear is where it's at. Sorry, sometimes I get mixed up with my words. This one's about a construction job. It goes, Papa hammer board and now whack, get back. Try to miss my thumb somehow, whack, attack. Oops, I got a little close, and you get the idea. It's about maybe hitting your thumb when you're using a hammer. And my favorite is ninjas. Sneaking, creeping, tiptoeing, army crawling, burrowing, shielding, guarding, get going. That's what ninjas do. So if you like the ninja song in Black Key Blast, this is a piece you can use over and over again since it's a studio license, and you can you'll like that one too. All right, the next one is Dizzying Ride, and this one has a white key in it, but it's that it's the D between the two black keys. Getting dizzy, twirling round and round. And obviously this one is part of the fair pieces. Bumper Cars goes like this. Bumpin', 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 something getting faster. Now I'm pumpin', look behind, look sideways faster. I'm a pumpin', bumpin' master. And then Carousel. Picking a ride with the right stride, in the right color and on the right side. Goes on from there. The third collection is called Summer Fun, and this is pieces about the summer. Ice cream, biking, swimming, hiking, there's no more school today. Playing, swimming, swimsuits, dripping, summer is here. Hooray, summer is here. It goes on from there. S'mores. Have you ever had a s'more? The camping treat that I adore. You get the idea. And then the last one in this collection about summer fun is called Look Mom, No Hands. Look Mom, no hands. Biking and on piano. Look Mom, no hands. I'm a moving marvel. So those are the black key pieces that are available. Again, 3 pieces come in each of these sets. So there's a total of 9 pieces if you have all 3 of the sets. Now the next set is called Fun Foods, and this is an elementary set. And these are super fun. It's one of my favorite collections and one that I think teachers are using the most. The lyrics are from a child's perspective. You'll see what I mean. And my kids in my house won't stop singing these. These are really, really fun. So the piece that I'm going to play is called The Chocolate Touch. And if you don't know what the chocolate touch is, it's like the golden touch, where everything you touch turns to chocolate. I wish I had the chocolate touch in white or dark or double Dutch. I touch my carrots and my peas or anything that didn't please. Chocolate. And then they do a little moving around the piano. The next piece is Ketchup. If you have a kid in your house, you know how lovely and beloved this condiment is. Whatever mood, whatever date, whatever food, whatever plate, whatever chip, this is my dip. Ketchup is all that I need every day. I forgot to move the slide on that one. All right, the last one is one of my children's favorites. It's called Who Names My Food? Who's the namer of my food? I have a big complaint. Though I would never eat my dog, a hot dog's on my plate. about the silly ways that we name children's foods. So that set is the elementary set. Now, I wrote this and I knew it would appeal to children. And so I wanted to write a set at the same level that would appeal to not children, to more mature students. Before I move on to that, Carrie says they're loving the pieces, so you can see that teachers are already using these. So Living Life is one of the sets that I wrote that are not necessarily appealing to young kids, but especially to students who are a little more mature. These are really written about the struggles of COVID, but they're also written about the struggles of life. So it's not just going to be specific to 2020. These can definitely apply to all kinds of struggles in life. There's fingering and articulations, all of the things you would normally expect in a good piece of pedagogical literature, and then they're in a contemporary style. So this is called Unhurried Day. You get the idea from there. You can use pedal, or you don't have to use pedal in that one. It's still pretty without pedal. The next piece is Waves of Worry. And these, of course, are longer, but I'm only playing the first part just to give you a feeling of what they sound like. And then moving forward is a much more spirited piece. You get the idea. All right, so that's Living Life, and that's an elementary set. Valerie Alfonso says, my 13-year-old loves them. She has created her own piece based on Unhurried Day, and she keeps playing it on her own, so I know it's a win in our house. All right, Start Your Engines is the next set, and this is a late elementary set that's very spirited. There's even there's two glissandos in one of the pieces. These are great showstoppers. They're very impressive sounding. You can give them to your kids who love that. You already know because they're very flamboyant kids, but don't underestimate your children that are shy. A lot of times these children surprise you at the way they want to show people there's more to me than just my shy nature. So don't hesitate to introduce these kinds of pieces to your more shy children. The accidentals are written in. You don't have to worry about key signatures. And this is a fantastic set for teaching articulation. The first piece is Stop and Go. The second piece is the one with the glissando in it. And of course, you can always use a index card to pull down the piano for a smooth glissando. This is the third line. And I skipped a little bit at the beginning of that, but you get the idea of how exciting it sounds. And then the monster truck song. Oh, I'm sorry. It should be an octave lower. You get the idea. Very big, heavy sound. Really, really fun. All right, Lori says, these have been a huge hit with my students during this period of distance learning. In addition to using them as level appropriate extracurricular repertoire, I've been using them as sight reading for adult students. So that's the great thing about the studio license is when you purchase a studio license, you can use the piece over and over and over again. But don't just use it for the students at that level. Use it for students that are a little bit above that level so they can have more material to sight read. The one-page format has been most helpful. All right, so I also, in the same way, like I did for the elementary set, I wanted to write a late elementary set that wasn't these big flamboyant pieces. And so I wrote a set that's appealing to teens and adults too, or just students who are more sensitive and don't want to play loudly and quickly. They're definitely differing moods though. And so you don't just get all smooth and beautiful pieces in this one. It's really great for promoting expressive playing. So here is a little bit of Leafy Reflections. Idea. And then the second piece is called Sleeping Seedling. This is a really, really sad, melancholy piece. Idea there. And then the last one is a different mood, but still about trees. Left hand gets a chance to play the melody, which is sometimes hard. Mary Jane says, my 9-year-old student chose to learn Sleeping Seedling from Secrets in the Trees last week. She sent me a recording tonight and it brought tears to my eyes. It was so beautiful. So I love seeing students do beautiful things with these pieces, just what I want. So, all right, Feeling Fine is the newest. The next 3 sets are the newest sets in the series. These are early intermediate. We just brought these out about 10 days ago. These sound very mature. The smallest note value is the 16th note, but there's always 4 16ths together, so it's not rhythmically difficult. There's syncopated pedaling as you would expect in this level. The key signatures only have 1 sharp or 1 flat, and the first piece is called Stoked. A nice jazzy sound. Idea. And then there's Rested, which is one of my favorites in the set. All right, and then the third piece is Fidgety. A very fun and energetic piece. Mix the first and second ending, but you get the idea. So that's Feeling Fine. So if you just purchase Feeling Fine, you actually get 3 pieces that work in that level. So looking forward is the second set that I worked on, and this is the intermediate set. And I wrote this specifically with teachers and students in mind. Back in May, maybe you're one of the teachers who said this, but back in May, I put out a poll question and I said, how many of you teachers would like music short sheets for you? Because we all know that we're always having to work on, different music for different things, long pieces, and there's just rarely a time to learn smaller pieces. And how many of you would enjoy just a set of small pieces that has a teacher in mind or has somebody more mature in mind? And hundreds and hundreds of teachers said, yes, I want that. So this is one of the sets I think that would work. The late intermediate set will especially be relevant, but this intermediate set's very easy to play, of course, for teachers. The key signatures are E flat, B flat, and G. It's carefully edited. That's one of the wonderful things about Diane and I working together, is we go back and forth and she suggests, well, have you thought about it doing this way, Wendy? This is more clear. And so that's a great thing about our collaboration. But there's a depth of sound in these sets of pieces that makes it very musically satisfying. Now, this first one's a little more student sounding, but it's called On the Bright Side. joy there. That was actually a deliberate quote. The next piece is one of my favorites in the set, called Glimmer of Hope. With sevenths that I think is just beautiful. Not the seventh sort of sound that you typically think about. Sight to Behold, Diane said, is one of her favorites from this collection. So very serene and beautiful sounding. So that's the intermediate collection called Looking Forward. And then Stay the Course is the one that I specifically wrote for teachers. There was a teacher at that time I was thinking about these that wrote to me and was telling me that she just felt like she had no path forward. And I have felt that so many times, especially this summer when I didn't know what to do with school. I didn't know what to do with this and that and the other thing. And just, I felt like I had no path forward, no hope for those kinds of things. And so this is the set that came from that. The pieces are compelling. There's a lament in here that I think would be especially appropriate in a church setting. So here is the piece called No Path Forward. And then there's the lament for all of those places that we've been. On from there's some places with some 2 against 3 very easy polyrhythms. I love polyrhythms. It sort of almost just says how complicated everything is, but is still beautiful. And then the last piece is a curious clearing. You'll notice there's some asymmetrical meter in here, and that's purposeful because in all the paths that I have before me now, none of them are the paths I would have chosen. None of them are easy, and they all are just not smooth paths. So this is sort of an oral representation of that. So that's Stay the Course. Hopefully that's something that's encouraging to you musically and interesting to you to play. Now, you notice these aren't exactly one-page pieces. I actually wrote them. They fit on one page, but I just like the look of them on 2 pages. It just looks better, looks clearer, and so they're really one-page pieces that are just spread out so that it feels much easier to read. It's just visually more appealing. So those are the 3 sets of short sheets that are brand new this season. So, all right. Now what I'd like to do is invite Diane to come back on and talk about All Cooped Up.
Thank you, Wendy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So All Cooped Up was the series that I wrote, just basically for real beginners. You can use it with kids that are in primer or in anything that's very, very simple. And I designed them specifically to be easy to teach online. So they have things like alternating phrases that make teaching online easier. Now, what that means is, for instance, every piece that's in this has something that's easy to isolate. You can either play every other measure or you can play just the left hand. So the first piece that's on this, you can hear, is chicken chimes, which is just a little bell-like piece. You can put the pedal down the whole time. And kids like that. It's their very first experience with pedal. It needs to be an all or nothing experience. So that's why chicken chimes is in there. Just something silly for kids to play and make them feel good. Now, somebody asked me why I wrote so many of these pieces in D major. And I wrote them so that, for instance, in that, it makes it easier for them to know which note they're supposed to play. If they're only going to play one black key and they're only going to play that with their third finger, then having that extra special symbol on it actually makes it much easier. And I would never, in a piece that was at that level, for instance, put a key signature in. It's just kind of mean, and also it's just going to backfire on you. So Poultry Prance is a perfect online teaching piece. So for instance, I would have my student play all the left hand measures in the beginning. So if they were going to play all the quarter note measures, they would play, and then I would play, and then they'd play. So what I would do in that situation is have them play. You can use whatever criteria you want. It could be all the left-hand measures. It could be all the right-hand measures. It could be every other measure. And if you're really with it this fall and you get some Post-it notes in your welcome back packet, you can actually even cover up the measures that they're not going to play, which can be kind of a fun way to do it and help them process what's going on the page. But what I did, for instance, first time I taught that piece, I told my student, I said, I'm not good at playing fast. So I said, could you be sure to leave me a little space so I can fit those notes in? And in that process, it helped make up for the fact that I couldn't play duets with my students and I couldn't play on the same piano with them. But the delay turned out to not be a huge problem. Even if there's a slight delay, you can alternate on things like that. Let's keep going. Bantam Waltz is interesting. Bantam Waltz is just a little D minor piece with the melody in the left hand. And when I put it in, I wasn't sure kids would like it. And what the weird part is, every student I've taught it to, every single one, this is their favorite piece. And everybody who's written to me has said this was their student's favorite piece, which I think is really interesting. Maybe it's because it's a little more sophisticated sounding. It's fun to have the melody in the left hand. And I think a lot of times, first time we talk about balance, we give them a piece where the melody's in the right hand and we tell them to play the left hand softly. So that's a standard way to do it. This is actually easier because most kids are right-handed. I know not everybody is, but most kids are right-handed. And the left hand, they're good at playing that kind of clunky, right? And if they're learning how to balance things, this is a great way to do it. So that one has been a big success. Hunt and Peck is just a silly little piece, again, alternating. So you could give them whichever piece you wanted, but if you'll notice, they get slightly harder through the book, and the kinds of little germs that are in there become slightly harder. They're also really great pieces to play a game that I learned from my student. I teach all these teachers, and my student Michelle taught me the game piano tag, which all you do is you just tag, and then your student has to take over. And at the beginning, you might do it in a very simple way, but maybe by the next time you did it, you might go tag, and they have to figure out. It's been really interesting to me. That has done a great combination of both ear training and having them look at the score that got them right back in the game. Because I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of times I feel like it's hard to interact with your students. So you have to use so many words, and you kind of see them sort of start looking off around like this while you're talking to them. It gets really frustrating. So those are some sort of simple ways you can use these pieces. And I know they work because I've done it myself. Then, oh, here's just somebody wrote, All Cooped Up is a huge hit. I have a number of littles and they're playing a new one each week. And that's what my students did too. I had them learn one a week. And then a few weeks into it, I realized, oh no, I'm running out of All Cooped Up. I'd better write some more. So that was when I wrote All Cooped Up 2. Also, Wendy was very encouraging and thought it was a good idea. So this is the same thing. We have one sticky little motive, and the scaffolded challenges, what that means is that as something becomes more difficult, it starts off simple and then gets added onto. So you'll see in this particular piece, in the first piece that's in this book, Dottie's Daydream. And I put a little fermata there. They get a big kick out of that because they get to hang out as long as they want. And here's a scaffolded challenge where they put the pedal down and they play this little phrase. You can't see it, but then they move it up, same pattern. And on the next page, they take that pattern, they move it up. But they've already got it in their ear correctly. So that makes things so much easier. And there's a huge glissando, and then they're back in time. Now, what I like about this piece is that it gives the students a chance to use their imagination. So their imaginations are getting a little short shrift right now. And this piece is about a little chicken that learns how to fly and gets to go somewhere. And I have heard some of the most outlandish, crazy versions of what's going on and what is this, what's this chicken dreaming about? And it's a lot of fun, and we're short on fun right now. So anything that can engage the students' imagination is great. The next piece is called In the Woods, and this is kind of a follow-up piece to the Bantam Waltz. We're back in 3, but the melody is a little more complicated, and the right hand has a slightly more difficult job, but still the basics of a left hand melody, and then the right hand gets to do something. And there's actually a tiny move that's scaffolded in the sense that your right hand kind of runs into your left hand and encourages it to move down. A few extra fingerings. And another thing is, usually in attention grabber pieces, I don't put measure numbers in the initial lower levels because I think they interfere with their reading. But at this particular point in our lives, we need measure numbers in every other way we possibly can to communicate where our students are supposed to be. So everything has measure numbers in all of the All Cooped Up pieces. Chicken Run is the beginning of a chromatic scale turned into a piece for a little kid. That's what we've got at the beginning. Those are the little pieces of it, and each time they get put together, and then in the second page, there's a little snazzy thing with only one rhythm. And my students have loved this piece. And it's interesting, you give them something a little bit hard to do, and you'd think that would be really hard, but it's also physically interesting and it's catchy, right? So anything you can do that gives them something that they think is hard. Like a lot of times I'm really not very subtle. I give kids things and I'll say, I think this piece is too hard for you, but let's try it. Okay, so here's how the beginning goes. I bet you can't do it, but let's see if we can do it. Can you do that? And they'll go, whatever, and then they'll figure it out because they like a challenge. So anyway, that's All Cooped Up 1 and 2. And I can vouch for the fact that they're really easy to teach online.
Yeah, and I can vouch for the fact that kids love them. My daughter is playing both of them. She learned the easier one and she's working on the harder one. So
that's great.
Yeah, great set of pieces. Wendy. Especially for online, but otherwise too. So, all right. So, excuse me, a couple more pieces that we have. Dragon Dreams is the brand new piece in this set of mythical creatures that we have. We've got a unicorn piece and a mermaid piece. And Dragon Dreams has a big intro that's really easy to teach by rote. This piece gets them out of C position. So you notice that the left hand in the second line starts on the C, but it actually is the 2 finger that plays the C. And then the right hand starts on F with the thumb on F. So it's a great way to get them out of those methody sort of places where they're used to just staying there, but there's a little bit extra fingerings to help them be consistently accurate with, like, for instance, the C, that you always play the C with a 2-finger. The lyrics, of course, are a big deal to students who've been playing in the series, and the bonus coloring page is also a big deal to students playing in the series. So this comes with each of these pieces comes that bonus page. Now I'm going to real quick show a video of this instead of playing it, just for reasons on the back end. We're kind of doing some testing. So here's a video of Dragon Dreams. All right, everyone always says that my voice is really quiet in there. That's because I am not a vocalist. I don't sing. That's just not my thing. I took some voice lessons, but I don't know how to project very well, so forgive me about that. All right, so that's Dragon Dreams. Now, the last set that we have to show you is a set that comes from this. These are the Rote and Reading Adventure series, and we've got the African Adventure, we've got the Canadian Adventure, and now we have the American Adventure. And these Rote and Reading sets are designed so that you can teach them by rote, by reading, or we would encourage you to use a combination of both. So for example, when you're showing a student, you play the piece, and then you're showing them that motive again. So you show them the motive, you play it for them, but then you say, okay, so what does the music say I do next with it? Is it the same thing? Do I play it again? And they then have to study the score to figure out what's happening next. Do I move up? Do I move down? Do I stay in the same position? And so that sort of helps train them so that they're not just doing complete rote learning. They're actually doing rote learning to help facilitate the learning of the reading of the music. So that's how I would encourage you to use most of the rote and reading pieces. Bison or Back is basically an early elementary piece in this piece, or in this. Also elementary students can do it too. You notice that it starts on the black keys though, and the black key is pictured, and there's actually finger numbers on it. So it's really just like reading one of those black key pieces. Which way do I go next? Oops, sorry. Up. Oh yeah. Okay, where do I go? Where do I go now? So you're asking them to look at the score and tell you where to go. Like I said, it's a black key piece. The finger numbers are there, but the second page repeats a little bit of the first page, and I didn't put as many finger numbers in. And that way you can kind of tell if your beginning students are starting to get it, where they're looking at the score saying dun, 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 dun. Oh, wait, there's no finger numbers on those two notes, but they look like they go up, so I'll go up. So it kind of helps you figure out if they're starting to really read, or help them transition into reading that direction. But if for some reason that's too hard, you can always just use that first page again because it's the same thing. Kids sound big and accomplished with this piece. And as you notice, it's great for developing arm weight. Now, Legend of the Eagle is just a beautiful lyrical piece. I did not imagine young students playing this. I actually imagine more like preteen and teenage and even adult students enjoying this one. It's great for students who have trouble playing hands together. It's kind of one of those in-between pieces because when the hands play together, the fingers are always mirror images of each other. So when your fourth finger's playing, if you look at that second line, when your fourth finger's playing in your right hand, your fourth finger's playing in the left hand. And so they just go back and forth, and that's the only way that the hands play together. The whole song is all steps and skips. And then these are just skips. Skips starting on A, skips starting on A, and skips from there. So it's a really beautiful piece that I think especially mature students will enjoy. Booming Beast is a really big sounding piece. I have a few thoughts. A big, deep sound. It's great for teaching arm weight once again, and also good for teaching bounce. Now the next part, don't have your students count this. Just have them count the number of D's that they play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting should always be something that's a help, not a hindrance. So when you're using this to teach main motives, don't make them count 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's not going to make any sense to them, and it's not going to help them play those quarter notes evenly. They can play those quarter notes evenly just by mimicking you, or just by knowing that they're supposed to sound like this. But they are going to need help counting those number of D's so that they know how many D's to do. So in that case, count the number of D's instead of counting beats. So don't let this feeling of, I always have to have my students count out loud. Don't let that feeling override your good sensibilities when you know that it's just much easier to teach them how to play this rhythm more accurately a different way. So for instance, the half notes, booming, 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 boom. And see, using the word booming, which is 2 beats, is going to be that half note sound. And so you don't always have to use counting with numbers in order to make students rhythmically accurate. All right, Mountain View is the last piece in the set. And it, again, is going to be more appealing to students with a mature sense of music. Helps them learn to move around the keyboard because their right hand is always moving by thirds. So it's a really pretty sound for older students especially. All right, so if you purchase this as a bundle or in a bigger bundle, you actually get that bonus cover. We've had that bonus cover for all 3 of these sets. When you purchase all 3 of them, then you can get that bonus cover and you can give it to your students as well. All right, so Diane, if you can come back on here real quick. And I thought that was our last thing. I'm sorry, I forgot about the month songs. We've started to release Diane's month songs on Compose Create. These are beautiful, interesting songs. A couple of them were chosen for the NFMC bulletin. And so
okay, so let's start with July song, which is sort of my homage to Copeland, with apologies to him, because it's certainly not in his level, but it's got this kind of American sound. So, and even at the end. So it's super optimistic and fun, and the rhythms are actually fun to teach. Students really like. All different kinds of students I've taught this to have really had a good time with it. August is kind of watery and beautiful and all about mixing very simple kind of clusters together. Very easy to move around from place to place. No key signature, so all the black keys are marked with an accidental, but full of sort of imagination. Anyway, that's a piece I like to use just to help students' imaginations. And then September song is actually built on a tiny little motive that my student Thomas taught himself, saying 1, 3, 2, very not advanced student, but he figured out how to do this thing. And so I kind of rewarded his ingenuity by giving him a little tarantella to play. And then there's a middle section. And you can play this piece very successfully without any pedal. I was just using a little bit on the middle section. I kind of like that sound, but it does not require it at all. And the chords are very simple. There's 1, 4, 5, 7 chords, but because this has a little bit of personality to it, it's a little bit more interesting. So that's those 3-month songs. I think Wendy's going to come back and say something.
Yeah. Real quick, I was just going to say, when you purchase the month songs in that threesome bundle, you actually get these teaching tips that Diane has created. And you all know what a master pedagogue Diane is. I talk about her all the time in previous webinars that I've done, but she's actually put her thoughts down on teaching these pieces on paper. And so these are really helpful tips that come with that bundle. And then she came up with the brand new idea to include something we're calling the Master It Faster file. So Diane, tell us what those are.
Well, so when I was making the teaching tips and I was sort of revising them and stuff to have them be on Compose Create, what I was trying to do was to create kind of a script for a teacher who had never taught these pieces before to use. So for instance, like if you're going to teach this piece, you probably know how you like to teach it, but I don't care how skilled you are. If it's your first time teaching a piece, you don't really know how you would want to teach it. And especially if you're trying to teach it online, it makes it very difficult. So I was making these teaching tips available for people that bought the bundle. And I was just about to finish them all. And all of a sudden I realized, no, there's something else I need to add. And the thing that I needed to add was the ability for a teacher to send what I called at the time a cheat sheet to their students, which is for instance, if I'm recommending that they play, but you have to look at the piece and you have to say, okay, let's see. In measure 8, I want you to play just the right hand. I don't know about you, but I had such bad experience. There was a student of mine, Silas, and it literally took me 10 minutes at one point in his lesson to get him to start on the 3rd line. It not only took 10 minutes, it took 2 parents. Hey, can you close the door, please? Thank you. Anyway, so I realized that finding the place to start, especially if you're going to add something complicated, like could you just do the left hand or just do the right hand, was a huge time suck. And it might make it a really great thing if you had a cheat sheet where you could just say, look at example A, look at example B, instead of trying to sort through the music. So I created these things for each of these 3 pieces. And what you do is you just send that along with the music, just the cheat sheet, not your teaching tips, but just the cheat sheet, which is called Master It Faster, which makes them think it's a great thing to do. And there's one for each one of them. And they do things like just break the left hand into chords that are easier for them to learn. Or they just take the right hand and help them learn what the melody is going to sound like. Something simple like that when you're asking them to do it and look at, say, something like play the first note of each measure, something like that can be just incredibly excruciating when you're not there in person to highlight it, to cover something up, to point. You just don't have those things available to you unless you have a very snazzy setup. And even if you have a snazzy setup, it's hard because then assuming you've got a snazzy setup and you've got your own personal thing and then you're trying to highlight another camera, then they get overwhelmed by the number of things they're supposed to look at. So just putting Master It Faster in front of them is a great, great way to teach these pieces, especially, as I said, whenever you're teaching new music, it's hard to do it. So you've got something to help you, and then you've got something that's going to help your student and make their job easier. So that's how they came to be.
I love these. These are brilliant. And Diane is going to create each of these teaching tips and Master It Faster files for each of the pieces. And then if you're always getting them in the bundle, you can always have those available. If you've purchased them previously purchased the pieces previously on Diane's site, there is a way that you can also get the teaching tips and the Master It Faster files as well. There's a separate product on our site for that. So we've made that available as well. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is click on the little red tab that's on the right side of your screen. It's got 3 dots on it. That's going to open your chat window, and you're going to be able to see some things that we're going to show you in just a minute. Real quick, I just want to tell you briefly about the specials in case you're interested in any of the music. All of these things are going to expire August the 21st, which is not tomorrow, but the next Friday. All of the pieces and the resources we've mentioned today are digital and studio licensed. And that means you only ever have to purchase it one time. And if you purchase it when you're logged into your account, it'll be in your account for as long as you're ever a teacher, and you'll be able to re-download it as many times as you ever need to. So you can make prints for as many students as you directly teach. Right now, you can even send them the piece directly, and you can do that for your entire lifetime of teaching. So it's like getting an unlimited supply of a piece of music that kids love. And like I just said, we have had a temporary licensing change because of COVID. And so at least until December the 31st of this year, you can just email it to them directly. And so you don't have to make the print and go take it to their house or mail it to them if you don't want to. You can if you want to, because sometimes it's fun to see them if you're teaching online, but you can also just email it to the parent, have them print it, and then it's available just like that. Like I said, all the specials are good through next Friday. These newest releases that we've had in August, those individual pieces are on sale till then as well. But all the bundles that we've mentioned that include these pieces that we've talked about today are on sale at their best price right now. You don't need a coupon. We do this because I hate coupons. I hate it when I'm checking out and I've submitted my order and then I remembered, oh my goodness, I forgot to put the coupon code in. I just hate that, and I just think it's kind of a little unfair at times. So we just made the prices to be the sale prices. So you don't have to worry about a coupon. They're already marked down. And just a quick note, if you are interested in purchasing a bundle, just make sure you don't have any of the pieces in the bundle, because unfortunately we can't mix and match or pull something out or refund something for something that you already have. So just be aware of that. All right, so on the right, we're going to show you just a few offers. And right now, the offer that we're going to try to show you is the August 2020 Windy Bundle. And I just called it that to differentiate it from Diane's August 2020 bundle, and it was complicated to put them all together. So this is the 2020 bundle of all the music I talked about today that's a new release. And that is, again, all of these are studio licensed.
Getting thrown out.
Oh, hello. Are you there, Diane? Oh, Diane? Hi.
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
I keep getting thrown off. And so then when I come back in, it turns my mic on, but not my video, and I can't get it turned off fast enough. So that's what's going on. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No big deal. All right. So anyway, this is the August 2020 bundle. And again, this is studio licensed music. You get that bonus cover for the African Adventure series, and all of those come together. Some people have even already purchased this and started using them or like them. Robin says every single piece you've offered in this bundle is a must-have, etc. Okay. So the bundle that Diane has released in August is the All Cooped Up bundle. And this is normally $22.98. It's on sale for $19.99. The All Cooped Up bundle, All Cooped Up, remember, has 5 pieces in it. All Cooped Up 2 has 3 pieces. So that's a total of 8 pieces that you get, that you can not only use for one student, but you can use over and over and over again for students that are a little bit higher than this level, a little bit lower than this level, for students at this level. Just use it just in full in your studio, because it really gives you a huge advantage to be able to use it in all of those different ways. Okay, the month songs bundle. I assume that you saw that previous offer. Diane had gotten kicked out, but I'm not sure. Did she show the All Cooped Up bundle? Diane, are you still there? Okay, she must have shown it, because now she's showing the month songs bundle. Very good. Okay, so the month songs bundle, again, like I said, if you get the bundle, then it's the teaching tips as well as the master it faster files, all of those come along with the music. And I forgot to say, these little add to cart buttons that you're seeing on the right side, if you scroll down, if you're on an iPad, you can see it as well. Those, if you click on them, will take you to a new tab and add it to your cart, but you can always remove those later. So if you're halfway interested, not sure, you can add them and then you can remove them later. There's an update your cart after you change your quantities and things like that. It becomes pretty easy to update. So, all right. So that is the month songs bundle. Again, you get all the songs as well as the teaching tips and the master it faster. And then we've got the Black Key short sheets bundle. So each of these short sheet sets comes with 3 pieces. So 3 times 3 is 9. That's a total of 9 pieces that you can use again over and over and over again in your studio. Christy says, love these one-page cute songs in all Black Keys. My students are loving them because they can learn at least 1 per lesson, and they love the titles and fun sounds. I've been thrilled with them too. So easy for summer and virtual lessons. Leanna says, I gave several of these short sheets to 2 of my students last week. They both enjoyed them. They were very easy for the older one, so he learned 6 in a week. Now, imagine how wonderful that student and how proud that student is of learning all of those pieces of music. And the more often we can give those students the opportunity to feel good about what they're doing, the more motivated they are to play and to practice. All right, and then the last bundle that we have, we've got some other bundles, smaller bundles if you're interested, but the one we'll show you is the mid to late elementary short sheets bundles. And this includes 4 sets, so that would be a total of 12 pieces. And these are going to be from mid-elementary to late elementary. So you get 2 mid-elementary, 2 late elementary ones together. And so those are all together. Now, all of the bundles that we've talked about today, none of them have repeating pieces, so none of them overlap. So just keep that in mind. I'm not showing you anything that has overlap. We do have some smaller bundles. If you're not sure you want all of that, but you want to see what is available, there's a special page you can go to. Those are just a couple of reviews, but a special page you can go to. You can go to composecreate.com/fall-2020. If you go there, you'll see everything we've talked about today. You'll see the individual pieces, you'll see the big bundles, and you'll see the smaller bundles as well. Or you can just browse the shop. If you go to the shop, then the most recent pieces are always on top. If you keep scrolling, it'll just keep showing you pieces in the order in which they released. So you'll see all of those newer pieces that way as well. Or one other way you can find things, if you know exactly what you want to find, you can just type in composecreate.com/product/ and then the name of the piece with each word separated by a dash. So in this case, mountain-view or bison-r-back. And you can just type in the particular title and you can find it. All right, so what I'd like to do now is invite Diane back on, and I want to answer some questions that you might have, and then we'll mention some other questions that we've taken from previous webinars that we've done yesterday. But if you would just make sure that if you have a question, you actually mark it as a question before you submit it. There's a little place you can do that. That will make us know that it's a question. Otherwise, it gets lost in the chat and we won't see it. So let's see. Carol is asking.
Oh, Vu.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just saw Vu is on there. I'm assuming Vu, that's Vu from Nebraska, who I love. It's so fun to see these people. Sorry, I just got excited.
No. No, I recognize a lot of names, and it's always fun to see those names. Okay, Carol, you asked, you said, I don't see Living Life short sheets for sale on the website. If you're looking for just that piece, there's the URL right there. So hopefully that will help.
Somebody just asked me which pieces are NFMC on the Federation list. So I wanted to answer that question. So the pieces that I have that are on the Federation list are all in Compose Create. And those are the March song, which is available as a separate sheet, November song, which is available as a separate sheet. And then there's also a really snazzy duet I wrote called Royal Homecoming, which is available on Compose Create as well. So those 3 things are all there.
And I just put links to those in the chat so you can go directly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Nice job. Nicely done.
Amy asked, can you explain the 30-piece challenge? Funny you should ask, because I have a whole slide for that, Amy. The 30-piece challenge is basically a challenge that Elisa Milne, an Australian pedagogue, started years ago. She is a brilliant teacher, a teacher of teachers, and she's come up with this wonderful, motivating program to help challenge students to learn more repertoire during the year. She calls it a repertoire-rich learning environment. Yeah. And so the idea is, she was a little bit frustrated, I think, when she started this, or before she started it, because she would find that teachers were only working on maybe 6 pieces, or 4 pieces over a period of 6 months. And granted, we have to work on pieces hard like that. And so there's every reason to do that. But what was happening is that they weren't learning any other literature. And so they weren't being exposed to new styles. They weren't being exposed to new layouts of music. They weren't practicing sight reading. They weren't experiencing that feeling that comes when you get a piece finished, right? When you feel good about having learned a piece and learned it well. And so that was missing, I think, she would explain, from those studios and maybe those students. And the teachers weren't getting the benefit, I think, of seeing their students motivated by those things as well. So she started this. She challenged her students. Diane, wasn't it like 100 pieces the first time she challenged them?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it might have been. I think it might have been that many. But I know it was also partly in response to Australia's exam culture, which is a very large part of piano lessons in Australia. It's my understanding is almost everybody sits these exams, which is wonderful. And it has all kinds of great benefits in that it makes sure that, teachers do the things that they're supposed to do. But the problem with exam culture is that it tends to be the only thing that gets done because, of course, it's the thing that gets checked on, right? So nobody's double checking to make sure you taught somebody how to play an 8-bar blues or how to improvise something or how to sight read something or how to do things not always to top of your ability. And so I think this was a lot in response to that. And also because Elise is a really creative teacher and she does all kinds of crazy, wonderful composing herself. Yes. So anyway, it's wonderful. What I like about doing 40-piece challenge is that it helps students buy into doing smaller things. So instead of being insulted when you give them a 1-page piece, like let's say they're playing, a 4 or 5-page sonatina in the real world. If you give them a 1-page piece, instead of them saying, I don't want to do that because that looks too easy, they say, can I put this on the challenge?
Yes.
Does this one count?
Does it count?
And so instead of it being something, and of course it always counted because what counts is learning, right? But it helps students kind of save face as they learn things that are simpler. Yeah. And then of course you get to decide as the teacher for every single student what qualifies as having learned a piece. Right. For some students, it might be memorizing every piece. For some students, it might be just being able to kind of hack through it because that's all you're trying to get them to do. So it doesn't have to be consistent even within your studio. It just has to be consistent within each individual student, what you're requiring of them. So it gives the students and you a way to kind of open up your mind, and then having studio licensed material so that you have the ability to use much simpler things than you would necessarily have a student go out and buy makes everything make more sense. So it's a really kind of a perfect melding of challenge and materials.
Yeah, and flexibility. I mean, I like how you mentioned it's
yes.
so flexible. And like I would tell my students, the way that it counted, like I would put it on the chart initially. So when they start a piece, it goes on the chart. And they like that because it means something then. It's significant even that they're practicing it. So it goes on their student chart. When they finish it, they get to check mark it. And like you said, it's a little different how particular you are. But I always told my students, it doesn't have to be completely perfect because we're human, and I don't expect you to not be human for this challenge, but I want you to play it musically and I want you to play it well. And if that means, that you can do those things and have a few little mistakes here and there, that's fine. There are some students that really struggle with just reading and playing and learning. And if that's the case, then I would, pick smaller pieces, or I would just make it work. And so anyway, what I was going to say was, I love heralding. I love talking about this challenge because it's just so good. It's the best motivational program I've ever used with students. And for a lot of students, it ends up motivating them with music, right? So we're always concerned about
It's
these
a perfect combination.
Yeah, the extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. And suddenly they're motivated to learn new pieces, which is exactly what makes them better pianists, is learning more literature and perfecting, or at least polishing that literature. So I love it. And so I try to do things that really encourage teachers to do it. And so one of the things we've done every year on Compose Create is to release free not practice charts, but 40-piece challenge charts and 30-piece challenge charts. And this year, the charts are out now. They're brand new. They're out. You can get them on the blog there. But we've made just tiny improvements to help teaching online easier. So for example, the student charts come as a separate PDF, and it's one page. So you just send it to your student and say, print this and put it in your notebook. Boom. That's what they have to do. So you don't send them the whole 6-page file and the parent has to say, now, which page am I supposed to print? It's just easy to just send them that
so
one
frustrating.
page. Yeah. And then people have told us in the past that the certificates were just a little hard because they had to type in people's names and then print and type and print. So we made a separate file for certificates, put 10 certificates in a file, and then we made it to where when you type in, because it's editable, excuse me, sorry. When you type in your teacher name, it appears on all 10 certificates. So you only have to type it once. When you type in the date, it appears on all 10 certificates. And then you can type an individual name on every single certificate, print. And then when those are printed, you'll type your next 10 students, or maybe you'll be done. So we're just trying to make things a little bit easier for online learning and teaching, just in case you have to move there or in case you're already there. Also, I was just going to say real quick, the 30 and 40-piece challenge, like I said before, short sheets are fantastic for this because your older, more advanced students are going to need shorter pieces. That's just all there is to it.
Absolutely.
And they need pieces that are musically, they have musical depth to them. They're not just silly pieces, or they're not just some kind of transcription of a movie tune or something that they got off the internet. It needs to be something that helps them to actually get better as a pianist. And then Diane's, excuse me, all cooped up pieces are great for the younger students too. Very doable, very accomplishable in a week. So those are all very good for those things. So that's a good question. Sorry, we took a long time with that one, but it's such a good challenge that I wanted to make sure we addressed it. So let's to answer some other questions. Diane, do you see any that you'd like to answer?
Sorry, I got so distracted talking about. Actually, you know what? Can I say one more thing about 30-piece challenge? Yeah. I do it the opposite way, which is they only get to write it in after they've learned it.
Ah, okay.
So there's, like I said, there's so many different ways that you can you can do things.
Renee did just ask a question about it, so we'll follow up with that. She said, how do you make the decision on whether to use the 30 or 40-piece chart, level, age? I just assumed that teachers would do the same challenge for all their students, but that's an interesting thought. Maybe your older students, you want to be 30-piece challenge, and the younger students are 4. I never thought about that before. We just do it this way because in Australia, it's the 40-piece challenge. And for whatever reason, 30 pieces seems to work really well for a lot of teachers in the US. So I include both of them so you can have a choice. But I've just always either picked one or the other. Good question.
Yeah, I always did one or the other too. I always did 40. That's just how I've done it.
Yeah. Laura also asked another good question, and I want to make sure I answer this. She says, would the pieces in the challenge be at an easier level than their performance exam pieces? Something I did leave out that's so important to realize. When you're doing the 40-piece challenge, when you're teaching in general, you should be giving your students music that's challenging, right? And I assume that those pieces that were performance exam pieces, those are going to be your challenging pieces. You should give your students music that's at their level, that challenges, pushes them a little bit, helps them to learn new concepts, but doesn't take forever to learn. But then we're adding this layer of giving them music that might be considered under their level. But that's just
Mhm.
music that can not be sight read perfectly the first week, but that can be read well enough that it can be polished, and it can be polished by, a week at the most, maybe 2 weeks. So the idea is to give them all kinds of levels that surround their level, not just music that's always challenging. So, okay, sorry, I'll
Mhm.
stop talking. Diane, you take something.
No, I think what I think of it as is the joy that I have. For instance, if I want to play duets with somebody and we don't play, the music, we don't maybe play the hardest thing that I could possibly play. We might play something that only is half of my level of playing, right? So I
Right.
get to use the skills that I've learned.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? As opposed to always getting new skills. Sometimes you just want
Oh,
to use
so
the
good.
skills that
Right.
you have.
Right.
Right. And so that's part of, I think, the beauty of it. It's sort of like the difference between if I'm going to read a book and I have to look up all half the vocabulary, or maybe sometimes, okay, this is a little bit of a guilty pleasure. I might read like a young adult novel just because it's really easy and fun.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
And
that's
there's
okay,
nothing
right?
wrong with that. Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we feel a little guilty
Absolutely.
about doing those things, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't. There's reasons for doing all of those things. So, all right.
Yeah.
Diane asked, which of Wendy's pieces are NFMC2? I will get back to you on that. Just one second. I'm going to look. There's actually a whole category on the in the shop where you can actually find
I
all
have
of the.
something to say.
Yes, please.
Here's what I want to say. Can you see, Wendy?
Oh, yes. Oh, tell us about the
I just
ladybugs
thought
there,
I would, I'm kind of famous for these because years and years and years ago, I had bought one of these as a reward, as a gift for my students. I had all these crazy things around, and this is one of the things I had bought. And one day I had a student that was sitting at her lesson, and she had like the world's worst hand position. She looked like this. And I just started grabbing stuff. I was looking around trying to find something, and I grabbed this. Literally, it was one of those things. I had it sitting there, and I stuck it under her hand, and I went, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And so basically all it is it's a little stress toy. It's squishy. And you can put it underneath anybody's hand size. Now, sometimes people ask me, they say, do you have big ones? Do you have small ones? It doesn't really matter because all you're looking for is something that supports the arch of their hand and gives them the feeling of what that feels like. And what I always do is I have them put their thumb kind of in the ladybug's mouth and wrap their hand around it. And then if you give them two of them, you can have them keep one under one hand and then take the other one away and then see if they can hold on to that position. So these are great if you can give them to your students during this period of online learning, because they can have something that stimulates their hand from the inside out. So otherwise, we're always trying to explain what that feels like. This actually gives them something underneath their hand and they can squeeze it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll tell a student, if they have a really kooky hand position, I'll say something like, put this under your hand every day before you practice and squeeze it 3 times. Right? It's not about strength. It's just about
Right.
feeling what that feels like. So I think I'll put I wrote a very specific blog post about these on Compose Create. So maybe I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great because in that post are links to where you can buy those. So that would be perfect,
Right.
I think, for people. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Couple other questions. And while you're doing that, Diane, Gabrielle says, who does your graphics on the sheet music, Wendy? They are clean and beautiful, very attractive to students. You know what? Graphics are like covers are a huge deal to me. If I had it, I would show you the funniest experience I ever had with this. So when I was writing music with Hal Leonard, there's a piece that I wrote called Barn Dance. And the Barn Dance was supposed to be for early intermediate students. And so I imagined teenagers playing it. I imagined it getting some audience participation and things like that. And so there was no back and forth. Maybe there is now, but back then there was no back and forth between the composer and the artists during these days. And so I happened to ask, can I please see the cover before you go to publish it? And they showed me this cover of these 2 cartoon dancing cows that were ridiculous. And you would laugh right now if you saw this, because they were just absolutely horrific. They were lovely for 5-year-olds, but not for a 14-year-old that needed to play barn dance. And so I was like, please. And so I suggested the artwork that they used, and it ended up being a great piece. It ended up being chosen for the NFMC list and all that. But anyway, I say that because in these days, with Instagram and everything else, there is absolutely no reason that we should give students a piece of music that has a cover that makes them feel embarrassed or makes them feel not mature, or just covers are everything. Visual is everything right now. So I'm super sensitive to covers, and we're all my family and I, we go back and forth. I ask my kids, what do you think? Because I need kids input. I ask my teenager, what do you think? Because he totally has ideas. And then I ask my husband, what do you think? And one of my other relatives, extended family, is an artist, and he used to do more of the covers and sort of coach me on how to put them together. And so I've learned a lot from him. So these days, mostly it's me, but I do get input from other people. So that's for sure. But it's just so important that kids have not only a great piece, but a great piece with a fantastic cover. So, okay, a couple other questions. Let's see. Someone was asking, and this is a hard question to answer. She says, Allison says, in the UK, there's a consideration that we can go back to face-to-face teaching as long as risk assessment is put in place. What do you think about that? I have to wipe everything down, always have the windows open, and leave 15 minutes between each student. I have gone back and forth deciding. First of all, I'm glad that you actually know what you have to do. Like, it sounds like they've actually told you, you have to do this, this, and this, and then you can teach. That actually, I'm not saying it's easy for you. I'm just saying it at least gives you criteria, and
we
so
don't have them really.
No, we don't. And so we all have to decide, well, what's best for students? And so what you're left with is, you need to decide, am I going to have enough time to teach my students if there has to be 15 minutes between students? So if you do not have time to teach your students, or your schedule will be so crazy that it will be bad for your mental health and your emotional health, then you absolutely shouldn't do it. It's just one of those things. You have to think about how it's going to affect you first, because you then are going to affect a whole bunch of other kids and families. And so if you're taking care of yourself and your schedule and those things first, it sounds like a selfish thing to do, but it's not. Take care of yourself first, so that then you can give the other students what they need. So if you can't do those things in a way that is emotionally and mentally healthy for you, you can always try it for a while. But if you can't do those things, then just do online teaching, and you have to deal with the disadvantages there. But there's disadvantages of the other too. No choice right now feels like a good choice. Diane, isn't that how it feels? Like there's no perfect choice.
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. I have been teaching one of my students in person, and the way that I've done that is that, I've done everything that I swore I would never, ever do again. So I've gone to this student's house. This is a very talented little kid that I've been teaching. And they set up his keyboard that he had before he got the big piano that he has now outside on the patio. And I stay way more than 6 feet away from him. And I've taught him out there for many weeks. And that's the only person that I've really been able to teach in person. And, if you told me a year ago, Diane, you're going to be going to this kid's house and teaching him on a keyboard outside like you've got the plague, because that's kind of how we're all acting, right? Because we don't know what anybody's situation actually really is. And this is the only way to stay safe. If you had told me that, I would have just laughed you out of my house. I would have thought that was the most ridiculous thing in the world. And yet, that's what's the best thing for me. And this particular person, I have made some crazy drives down to do this thing. So I think everybody has to take all of the variables in their situation, their own personal health, their mental health, their family's health, everybody's considerations, and then do something that's 10% more conservative. That's what I think. because I think it's best to be really, really careful
Mm.
and not to do anything that you feel uncomfortable about, and make sure that you're not feeling peer pressure from people that aren't your peers. And by that, I mean people that maybe don't actually have the risk factors that you have, or the financial things that you have. You just have to take yourself and say, what do I really want to do, in a way that we always thought we were making those decisions, and then we've had new challenges. So that's my 2 cents. But I think it's I don't think anybody is taking anything lightly, and I think we all just really need to be kind to each other.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, just in terms of tips and things like that. If any of you have anything in particular that you think, oh my goodness, I have found a really great way to do this, and I want to share this tip, please put that in the chat right now. If you've got like a great game for online lessons, or if you've got some idea of how to teach a certain concept, or something like that, put that in the chat right now, just so we can have some general tips from each of you. You can have a chance to share. I was just going to piggyback on what Diane was saying as sort of one of my last tips. And that is, just remember that if a parent in particular reacts to you, just try to keep in context where they might be at this point. I know everyone is going through a lot, but I'm just going to speak as a parent right now. There's just a lot of extra stress in parents' lives. And so if I find myself overreacting consistently. So when I get angry, I get really angry. And when I get upset, really upset. When I get sad, really sad. And I know that's all related to all of these things that we're going through. So if you have a parent that's particularly problematic and just insisting on that makeup lesson, or really angry about something that you're doing, just take a step back and realize it's more than likely not about you. It's something about them, and it's their circumstances that are making it even worse. And so that's just complicating things for them. So just be extra patient this year, I think, this semester in your teaching. And that would be sort of one of my biggest pieces of advice that comes from being a parent. So we're going to wrap up here in just a minute. Diane, I'll see if there's anything else you want to say. But while you're thinking about that, I just want to start just a quick poll. I know there's only 86 people left on here. Lots of people have had to leave because this has been long, and I apologize for that. Hopefully it's been helpful. But I just want to see who, just what kind of device you're viewing the webinar on. This will help us with future webinars that we have. And so if you're on a computer, mark computer. If you're on an iPad, mark iPad or tablet, phone. Just let us know what you're viewing this on, and this will sort of help us make sure that we make the best possible experiences for everyone. So Diane, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Vu's saying the same exact thing. I have 2 things. One is something Vu just walked in, which is what I have done for my students, which is I made a Google Doc to use as their assignment sheet, and I just share that link with my students and with their parents. And that way I can keep track, just like I used to keep track of what they are working on, what I actually told them to do. Mm-hmm. And that has worked a lot. But the main thing I wanted to say to teachers right now is just to take the time to check in with their students. Mm-hmm. When in a normal situation, when a student walks into your room, you can see what they're wearing. You can see what their body language is telling you, if they're kind of schlumping in, or if they run in and they sit down, or, you know, if it was pajama day at their school, I don't know, little things like that give you things to talk about. And it's harder when you just see this little face come in, or you see them sitting at the piano and everything seems the same and it's kind of boring. And so what I would just say is take the time to still ask them about their days, mm-hmm. about what they've been able to do. You know, have a ladybug come in and talk to them, have a puppet come talk to them. I don't know, care. It doesn't matter what it is, but take the time to see them, because right now nobody's getting mirrored. Nobody's getting seen. And piano teachers, because of their year after year, you know, even if you have a student for 3 years, let's say, that is so valuable, especially right now when they're not getting face-to-face contact, even maybe with their new school teacher. They have a school teacher that they maybe have never even seen in person. lesson.
Right.
So take the time to check in with their students. It's really good for everybody's mental health. And it's actually ultimately good for the piano playing as well, because when they feel relaxed and seen, they're going to play better and learn better.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents, is take the time to do all the things you would do normally, even when it feels less easy. It feels a little bit more stilted, but it's really important to do.
Right. Right. I love that. That's great advice. And I mean, I think you said it, like, those teachers are all brand new. And so just that beauty, we've talked about this so many times before, the beauty of having a 10-year relationship with a child is priceless.
Exactly.
It's just, it's
Yeah.
unique to our profession, I think, for most people. So, well,
And for
uh-huh.
lots of us, those relationships go on into adulthood.
Yes.
I mean, I'm friends with my students on Facebook and looking at their 8-year-old children now, kids that I taught when they were 8 years old, and now they have an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I'm special that way. I think a lot of us
Yeah.
have those long-term relationships. So make sure you treasure them even when it's awkward.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up. If I haven't answered your question, or if Diane hasn't answered your questions that you had, go ahead and just submit them. If you're still curious about them, you can always send them to me via email. Support@composecreate.com is actually the best place to send it. You can also just reply to an email as well, and it will always get to me. So feel free to do that. I want to tell you something real quick. We have a new rhythm webinar coming. You're going to get an invitation to it in this week's newsletter, and you'll have a whole week to sign up. But sign up if you're interested. We're going to be releasing Rhythm Manipulations tracks, which Rhythm Manipulations is a second book in the Rhythm Menagerie series. We're also going to be releasing a revised edition of Rhythm Manipulations. And if you already have that, you want to tune in so you can make sure you know how to get the new version. And then along with that, if you've never been a part of or used Rhythm Menagerie or Manipulations, and you're curious why this curriculum is so much better than Rhythm Cup Explorations in terms of putting lasting results of rhythm in your students, then this would definitely be the webinar you would want to come to. So watch out for that. The sign up starts on Tuesday, and then it'll be the next week after that. So stay tuned for that, and send any questions that you have for us to our email, and we will do our best to answer them. So thank you again for coming. We appreciate all of your time, all of your support. It means a lot to us. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.